All right, welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. I am joined here today by the one, the only, Ollie Glanville for a special episode, our end of season review for the Chelsea women. I know the season's been over for a couple of weeks now. We've obviously had a bunch of stuff going on with the podcast and transfers and all that sort of stuff. But of course, we could not finish a season, Ollie, without doing the superlatives, I should say, that these Chelsea women absolutely unequivocally deserve.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most dominant domestic seasons ever, right? I mean, let's get into it. Can't wait.
Of course, we have to do a little bit of housekeeping to start. If you are in New York on June 14th at Legends, we're going to be doing a little bit of a party there ahead of the Club World Cup starting. Be in Atlanta 2 days later on the 16th. To do a little post-game wrap after the first match of the Club World Cup. And then Philadelphia on the 19th of June. We're going to be doing a live podcast, having a party at Tierna Nog as well. So lots going on, lots of coordination with Atlanta, with Philly, with New York. Lots of Chelsea fans who are going to be around in the summer. So if you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, a lot of promotion will be going out over the next couple of weeks to get ready for this one. So without further ado, Ollie, we have, of course, 3-word season review, something to whet the appetite for what is going to be a fun episode where we basically cover everything that happened in the Chelsea women's universe over the last, let's call it 10 months of a season. What is your 3-word season review?
So for me, I tried to encapsulate everything and all of it into 3 words, which, as you know, is so hard to do. But I went with almost perfect start. I think you can't ignore the brilliance, the perfection in domestic games, and especially how we finished on a high against United. But there is that little bit that rankles in terms of that Barca semi-final, and actually we probably don't want to talk about it, but I think the fact that lot have won the EWCL before us for the second time probably gives a lot of motivation to this group. I was pretty worried about going into next season with a kind of lack of motivation domestically, but I think they'll have a fire under them having seen that, and I can't wait to see them come back this summer.
Yeah, I went with one more step in a very similar vein because it almost seems silly to think about the thing that we didn't get when you have so many things that you did get, and we will be talking plenty about the trophies that we did win along the way here. But yeah, the 8-2 aggregate in the semifinal hurts. It hurts a lot, especially within the context of the final and the way that the final was played and all that sort of stuff. And so I think this team, from a motivation perspective, I am not worried at all about what next year is going to bring. I think if you looked at Sonia's reactions throughout the season, I think this was always going to be a season where she understood her team and her players so that there could be a step up in season 2, season 3. And so one more step is kind of indicative of the process that I think we're going under to get to that final destination. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about where this team ended up after a lot of change. We have to remember that this time last year, we were talking about Emma Hayes' exit from Chelsea Football Club. We were talking about a 5th consecutive WSL title, won on the last day with a 6-0 win over Manchester United, which was hilarious in front of Sir Alex Ferguson and the entire crew there. It was an up and down year last season for sure. This is a team that didn't do well domestically, nearly got there in the Champions League, but didn't quite get over the line, and ended the season on a high despite kind of a rocky road on the way there. This season, Ollie, completely different. I mean, it couldn't have been more different in any more different ways. The league, of course, we won the 6th consecutive WSL. What do you expect? Not only didn't we do it on the last day, we did it by 12 points, just in case you're like, hey, how dominant were Chelsea? They won the league by 12 points. 12.
Is that allowed, Nick? I thought we were only allowed to win on the final day.
In
I thought this
dramatic
was.
fashion.
I thought we had to go down to literally the last second of the last day in order to make sure. I thought that was, that we'd written it, we'd signed the contract, whatever. Yeah, this was like outrageously dominant to the extent that people were talking about the race for like Champions League places halfway through this season. And it wasn't involving us. We were already there. So, just to give you some context, it was one of the most dominant domestic seasons you can ever hope to have. First time ever an unbeaten season in terms of the new structure of the WSL. I'm not sure we will ever see as dominant a season by an English women's team. So yeah, I love to see it, Nick. And pretty much every game has been a pleasure to witness. Long may it continue.
Yeah, I mean, dominant doesn't even begin to describe it from a points perspective. I think the listeners may be a little surprised on the route that we got to the dominance, though, and just looking at the way that last season kind of commenced, and I think we went on a flurry of late goals last season. I think we had like 20 goals in the last 3 games or something like that to come out the other side, but we actually finished 5 points better than the previous year. So we had 55 points last year. We had 60 points this year. We scored 56 goals in the league this season. And so we had a 43 goal diff, which was pretty good. When you look at last year, we actually had 71
it's quite
goals
good, Nick.
for.
It's quite good. 43 goals. Yeah, not bad.
we had 10 more goal diff last year. We had 71 and 18 for a 53 goal diff, despite the fact that we lost 3 games in the league last season. It's almost like incomprehensible, the math on some of these things, but I was really surprised that we had that many more goals for. But then you start to look at the results in the second half of the season, and those 3-4-0 wins at the beginning of the year become 2-1-1-0. It dominant in terms of performance, not dominant in terms of scoreline sorts of results. And so I think that's kind of where the end of season goes here, Ollie, which is under Hayes, we were kind of slow starters and fast finishers. I think it was a little bit of the opposite this year, where it wasn't that we were bad, but we weren't as like clinically dominant at the end of this season. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it was more like a higher average. Like under Hayes, the idea was always to have run in Chelsea, finish in the most dominant possible fashion, and I mean it was a perfect rendition of it last year, right? Winning against Bristol City and then absolutely battering United and all that kind of back-weighted big goal energy at the end of last season to get over the line. This one was just a kind of more of a procession, more of a average was much higher across the year.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have to dip into crazy reserves. Didn't have to dig into like massive moments to get over the line. We just established the dominance early and just kept on going. And I think that's much more a sign of Bompastor's teams, right? She's done it with Lyon as well. So I think that's what we'll see much more going forward. Ideally, we'd do it like we wouldn't have that 8-2 in the Champions League as well. But you can see in her first year how she's just established that kind of different culture to Emma immediately. And yeah, it's a really exciting way to start her Chelsea management.
Yeah, just for posterity's sake here, 19 wins in the league, 3 draws, 0 losses. Last year was 18 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses. So just take that into account for your own sake. FA Cup, Ollie, back to regularly scheduled programming here. I mean, it was a relatively simple, straightforward FA Cup run for Chelsea. I mean, I think Liverpool is probably the hardest match that we played in the run, and that was a late winner from Aggie Beeper Jones, who we will talk plenty about in this episode. But the final was a cruise of cruises. It was 3-0, dominant football. Mark Skinner's trophy apparently wasn't Mark Skinner's trophy. Who could have guessed? This is this is just a trophy in a setting at Wembley where Chelsea are incredibly comfortable, and they played like it. They played like a team who knew they were going to win that game 3-0.
For sure. Yeah, it was like, this is the plan. We go out, we execute. They have no answer for this. We know we are a much better side. We know we have much better players. We know we have infinitely better players off the bench. We know we have kind of impact subs that want to make their mark. And yeah, this was Sunday Baltimore's cup final. It was wonderful to see. And you know what? I'm going to go on record and say she absolutely meant that touch for the third goal, just because of how beautiful it was, just putting the United defender on the floor and then slamming it in the top corner. It was an instinctive touch, so I'll give it to her.
Yeah, it was such a class finish, and I think really a player that is on the rise, which we will talk about here
For sure.
as we head into next season. The League Cup, a competition in which Chelsea have a very fraught relationship, for sure, ends up at the start of the the quadrilogy with Manchester City in March, as we march through 4 straight matches against the same competition, which is just bonkers and just simply silly in the way that it worked out. But the League Cup, a trophy, Ollie, that for whatever reason just ends up being at the wrong time for Chelsea. So in so many different seasons, I suppose, ends up being the start of a really nice run in the middle of March against City, the team that for whatever reason just gives us fits. They finished 4th in the league. They were injured as hell this season. This was not like a great City team of old, but the way they play just gave us a lot of fits, and this was a very good final to win. Even if I don't think we played our best football, it was still a trophy, and it started the are Chelsea going to win the quadruple sorts of talks, which I thought was great.
For sure. I the old adages, as one Chelsea manager said previously, finals are for winning, Nick. And it's great to it's great to get back into that habit. It's great to see us win the FA Cup, but also this new fangled Subway Cup. Long may that sponsorship reign. Maybe it's a change of sandwich means a change of fortune for Chelsea. But yeah, just to get over the line in the way you said in terms of that spring series, we knew that one result maybe wouldn't pan out for us, and that turned out to be in the Champions League away at City. But yeah, just getting over the line in the League Cup, I think, further established that domestic dominance. And I think if we hadn't have won that League Cup, you maybe wouldn't be able to say how perfect the domestic dominance was. But instead, it's just perfection all across the board, Nick.
And I think that before we talk about the Champions League, which we'll obviously do at length here, it's an undefeated domestic treble. Chelsea did not lose a domestic match the entire season. I like that is just something incredibly important to keep in your brain as we head into the future. This does not happen. It certainly doesn't happen to first-time managers in a league. It certainly doesn't happen to teams who make as many different transfer moves as Chelsea make and keep that consistency and dominance. I think it is just an incredibly critical, important achievement that should not be overlooked, despite what we know we want to go win, right? Which is the Champions League. I think we all know that. This is like La Liga dominance with much better opposition. There's no other way to frame this. So you look at that, and I just want to give credit to the entire organization for an undefeated domestic treble. It's silly to say that out loud. The European competitions, Ollie, we know how it goes. Chelsea breeze through the group stages, are undefeated themselves in the group stages, dominant. Meet up with Man City, have a terrible first leg and a dominant second leg to advance to the semifinals, where we know who's waiting for us because that's what UEFA wants it to be, and that'll be big bad Barcelona. And unlike the previous two seasons where it felt like we were gaining momentum and figuring out how to play against this Barcelona team, we had a pretty big regression this year, unfortunately. So this was an 8-2 aggregate against Barcelona, 4-1 in both legs. It could have been more, frankly. We looked terrible and for 99% of these fixtures. Just not the Chelsea that we've seen in the Champions League before, not nearly as buttoned up, not nearly as confident. I don't know what it was. It just felt like such an outlier when you look at the entire season and the way that we controlled games and controlled bad moments that happened to us and bounced back from them. This was just a clown car, unfortunately, and it got out of hand pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was especially tough to watch away from home because I really feel like that's where the tie was decided. Essentially, I don't think coming back to the bridge 4-1 down was ever a kind of likely thing, especially after we'd put in one of our best European performances against City the round before. But yeah, it was just so tough because we looked like a team that was stuck between two different types of tactics. There, we wanted to maybe score the first goal, but then after not scoring the first goal, we didn't shut up shop. We were still pretty open. And the one thing you can't do against the Barcelona side in men's or women's football is just show weakness and just allow that kind of red carpet almost through your midfield, through your wide areas, to allow their most dangerous players to thrive. And we did it over and over again. And it's so unlike a Chelsea women's side in the last 3 or 4 years, right? It felt like a throwback to Gothenburg and like one of our worst moments as Chelsea women's fans around, in the final, where, a similar result, right? I mean, it was just tough to watch. And I think Sonia will get a lot out of this in terms of, learning around how best to use those players. But I also think we have to think in terms of the context of what we had at our disposal as well. I don't think, for instance, that game maybe happens if we have a fit LJ to carry the ball through midfield and not lose it in the same way that other players maybe did and cause counters. I also think if you have a fit Naomi Girma, as we did towards the end of the season, you saw how she exponentially increased that ability at the back. And also, it just felt like a combination of factors that just led to us being wide open and really kind of giving the game up at certain points. But yeah, just never again, I guess. Like we take this, we learn from it, and we bounce back and change it, because we saw last season exactly how to play against this Barcelona side, kind of the blueprint that faced them in the final as well, right? You know how to shut down their players the best way possible. You have to sit behind the ball and break. You have to rely on certain moments to go ahead against them. And that blueprint is there for a reason, right? It is how you play them. They're not going to change the way they play at all. They're just going to keep signing mega talents and play exactly the same way. So I think at a certain point you do just have to compromise, maybe playing a bit more front foot, and then maybe play them on the break, sit back, that kind of thing. Because it works, Nick. And we've seen it multiple times now with us, City, Arsenal have all beaten this team exactly the same way. It's how you play them, man.
There is no shame in advancing to a final. I don't know what else to say. So yeah, let's hope they figure it out. I think some important context, you just mentioned LJ as an injury, right, to the entire season here. Long-term injuries were still a factor for Chelsea in 24-25. Sam Kerr obviously did not play a single minute of football. This is a player who has not played for the better part of 18 months now after a really difficult ACL injury combined with some off the field stuff that was not so great in terms of a bogus, silly, court date that she had to deal with. And then additionally, her and her partner have a kid, and that's an important life moment. And being a parent is something that requires a little bit of time and energy, I would say. So
For sure.
I think she had a pretty interesting 18 months there. I think all reports coming out through the summer are she's getting back to fit. She's ready to go for next season. And boy, oh boy, is that going to be a welcome sign back to this team? Because additionally, Mia Fishel missed almost the entire season too. I think she was back in March, but didn't really play a key role for this team as she was kind of finding her feet and getting back fit. LJ goes months again. Unfortunately, got a hamstring injury at the exact wrong time of the season, right as she was playing her best football. Looked dominant. I think would have been maybe player of the season again if she had finished as strong as she finished last year. Kadisha Buchanan gets a just heartbreaking injury at the start of the season as she looks incredible, like raring to go, playing for a manager
Yep.
she's played for before, like just brutal. And I think the whole team just lifted her up a little bit throughout the season, celebrated with her, and she was there for everything too. I think just a credit to her, she didn't go away. She was right on the with the team every step of the way, and I think that's just a sign of a good teammate and a good leader.
For
And
sure.
then Femke Lifting, who we sign because Z is pregnant and will not finish the season. I think goes and has a long-term injury, like third training session, just brutal. So we have to bring in Becky Spencer to kind of play the auxiliary goalkeeper role. Luckily, did not need it, but just it shades all of the stuff that we're talking about here.
Yeah, like I mean,
So
can you name another women's team who would be without Sam Kerr, Lauren James, and Kadisha Buchanan and win an unbeaten domestic treble, Nick? Like, can you name one? Because, like, to me, if you take those you're talking about literal spine of the team, right? So if you take those out, I don't think anyone else is operating at that level, and I think that reflects pretty well on us and how we're squad building and building for the future as well.
And notably, I did not put Z in the long-term injuries category because pregnancy is not an injury, but Z did not play much this season for all the reasons that we know. And so, she's been an integral member to this team for a very long time. She has been the number one at times. She's been the backup at times. She's played in important games. She's had a storied legacy. She's been the best teammate that you could ask for, and I think that was shown at the end of the season with how much love and care was kind of given to her. So she's going to be someone that we miss as we look towards next season, just from a pure vibes and camaraderie standpoint. She's an
For sure.
incredible player and person. So not a long-term injury, but just wanted to call that out for obvious reasons. Let's wrap up section one here, Ollie, and give some scores for on-pitch performance here. Knowing everything that we just said, we contextualize the whole season in 20 minutes because we're that damn good at this. What is your score for on-pitch performance, given everything we talked about?
I mean, domestically, you it's 10, right? Domestically is completely 10. Like if you're being
11.
Yeah, right. You can't be like, oh well, you didn't win all these games 8-0. It's like, well, you still won the games, and leagues are for winning, right? And the records will show unbeaten domestic treble is just a crazy sentence to utter about this team, and deservedly so. And they should get all the accolades for that. I just think that the way in which we went out of the Champions League will really rankle with a lot of these Chelsea players, and I think maybe that will reflect with them in the off season as well, and them taking breaks, needed breaks, and coming back fit and fresh for next season. Just raring to go and raring to put that right, basically, because that is not. It's not a result that reflects this squad, this team, these players, that manager, and it basically cannot be allowed to happen again. Like, that tie has to be a one-off for this group. So I think off the back of that, I will take off a measly 1 point, and I will say over the course of the season, it was 9 out of 10, Nick.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a 9 out of 10. It's damn near perfect. I think I could have even given them a 10 if we would have lost in agonizing fashion to Barcelona because look, I mean, say it. I'm happy to say it until we're able to beat them. They are for me the pinnacle. If you're able to get past them, you should be able to get past anyone. They are incredibly good. We are incredibly good. We should be a hell of a lot closer than 8-2. And so I think this team now has the opportunity to go shithouse Barcelona, which is one of my favorite all-time hobbies to do, and get them
The best,
complaining
Nick. It's the
and
best.
complaining to the refs. I want more of that. I want less of them celebrating on our patch. I want more of us getting under their skin and making them do all sorts of crazy shit to try and beat us. So 9 out of 10. Let's dive into some managerial grades because I think we have a heck of a lot to get through here, Ollie, in terms of the season. But just grade Sonia. I mean, we contextualized everything up top, but how do you grade her first season at Chelsea?
Yeah, I mean, you put it in context at the top of this, right? She's stepping into the biggest gap in English women's football. Like Emma Hayes casts a long shadow. Like it's not just what she does on the pitch, it's what she does off the pitch. She's now the
Mhm.
manager of the biggest women's national team, the most scrutinized women's national team. She's always there. She is a specter that looms large over this club, and rightfully so. She built it alongside Paul Green and many others at the club to the level we are now, where we have won an unbeaten domestic treble, and we're still asking for much more in Europe. Like that is
Yep.
the level of this squad now. As Alexis Ohanian said, we are unapologetically
Ambitious.
ambitious, exactly. And I mean, that's reflective of the entire football club, right? So for Sonia to come in under all that scrutiny, you know, people saying, well, she's done it with Lyon and it's so much easier in the French league, and they've already such an established side and all this. She did it bigger here. She never. I'm not sure she ever won the league unbeaten at Lyon as a player or coach. So, I mean, she's stepped up here, and she's come in and established her way, her different way of doing things to Emma, and it completely stylistically fits with Chelsea as a football club. She is a born winner as a coach and player, and that's also reflective of the way she conducts herself in terms of interviews and results and her kind of priorities, which is another reason why the Barcelona thing was just so baffling, because it's not like she hasn't played
Yeah.
that squad many times before with Lyon and beaten them. But yeah, I think just overseeing the unbeaten domestic treble, it has to be way, way up there, with just that caveat of the Barcelona tie. So again, I have to go a very, very solid 9 out of 10. Like, you cannot ask for more domestically. And given, all the context around what she didn't have at her disposal, and what she did have at what time, I think, yeah, 9 out of 10, maybe 9.5 out of 10, man.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think the thing that she's going to have to deal with is the domestic side was already pretty solid when she got here. I think you bring in her for her Champions League experience, and not only as a manager where she beat Barcelona in a final, but as a player where she won the Champions League many times, right? So this is you bring her in for that experience, and I think for that it's a 9 out of 10. But I think contextually, she is so different from Emma. She is, I think, much more of a nurturer, like, and that is a different type of manager than what Emma was. Emma was a fierce competitor, right? And Sonia is too. I think part of the difference that I see is that Sonia's quiet reserve is the standard. Like, we know what this. I don't need to yell at you. you know exactly what we're going to be talking about in training this week. It's fine. Like, don't, I'm not going to embarrass you on the pitch. Whereas I think there were some moments in Emma's tenure, I should say, that were a little bit different than that, frankly. And so stylistically, they are very, very different. I think that would have been a shock to the system for the players that remained after, were there for both types of manager, because I do think she's much different. But she handled a lot of things with grace and classes here that I think would have thrown other managers for a loop. Tons of injuries to key players. We've already gone through that. A ton of talent in squad overhaul. Some additions of some young players who maybe don't have the experience yet that she requires to do the things that she wants to do. She had to figure out how to bed in a couple of academy talents along the way to make the pathway a little bit more clear than it's been in the past. Like, there are a lot of things that I think were very, very important that she did this year that weren't done previously in the same way. And so, just all that being said, just a tremendous manager, someone I'm so excited to see how the evolution continues. She talked about the strength and depth of the league in England and how important it was for Chelsea to finish undefeated, even though we had already won the league 3 weeks previously. She wanted to push all the way to the end. That to me is just like hardened steel of a winner's mentality. Like, we're not dropping anything. Sure, we already won, but no. We got to go win, win, win all the way to the end. So, huge credit to her. I love her mentality. I think that she is exactly what this team needs, and I'm very excited to see where she goes. Quickly on the business, because there was a hell of a lot of it. Incomings, the notables, Baltimore, Jean Francois, Lucy Bronze, Meili Zempom, just your casual most expensive transfer in women's football history of Naomi Girma in January, adding Kira Walsh to this team after a few years abroad at Barcelona, and a couple of other young players who were sent out on loan along the way. Outgoings, Frank Kirby, legend. Maren Mielda, legend, right? Melly Loopholes, who's now retiring from Real Madrid, had her own moments. Jess Carter. I mean, the list of, you had Fitkova, Shankovic, like, it's, you lost a lot of experience and replaced it with some experience, but some inexperience as well along the way, right? A lot of young refreshing of the squad as you move forward. I mean, players who are very, very talented, but when you're thinking about replacing your Fran Kirby's along the way, like, that's just a very hard task to do. So, all of that contextually, and I didn't note everybody that's here. I didn't note that Nikki Everard was came back and was then gone again. Exactly. So, how do you rate the business side of this, Ollie? Because there was a lot of experience to replace. There was obviously a huge amount of turnover within the squad, probably going to be again as we look toward the summer. Where are you going with this, and what Paul Green's done here?
Yeah, I mean, Paul Green is the best operator in women's football. I don't think there's any doubt about that, to be honest. I think,
Correct.
We've got some brilliant market opportunities, whether that be Sonny Baltimore coming in on a free, who massively overperformed that price tag, or, as you say, going out and buying the single best option once again for centre back in this case, in Naomi Girma. And we saw towards the end of the season how exciting she will be when she's up to full fitness. I think a lot of the incomings will only see how good they are over the next few years. For instance, like, I think we've bought a lot of excellent talent for the longer term, and that's always great in terms of that squad refreshment. But I'd also say, as you say, that there's that massive drop off in experience. Like, we've brought in a couple of heavy hitters in terms of Lucy and in terms of Kira as well, for sure. And that kind of double pairing was essentially there to add, like, immediate expertise in terms of domestic and European quality. but we also have a lot of very young players that are coming in to essentially fill the gap for some legends who are leaving.
Yep.
And I think that has to be taken into account as well. Like Micah Hermano is not Ji So Yun yet. She's not Frank Kirby
Nope.
yet. And she's being asked to play kind of that role. The same with Vika Kaptein, the same with Shuka Nuskan in those roles as well. And I think that, to the credit of Sonia, is what she's had to juggle all year as well. Just, players who have a massive amount of quality, but maybe aren't of the necessary experience just yet. So yeah, I think I'd say maybe 8.5 out of 10. I think we've got some kind of brilliant youngsters we've brought in. I think Oriane Jean-Francois is going to be really,
Yep.
really good in the long term as well. And I think don't discount her right now. I also think Vika Kaptein showed, even in like our darkest moments this season, that she has
Correct.
supreme quality. And she can finish, which is great because the older she gets, the more she'll be in those positions, and the more likely she will look to finish, which is great. I also think, as we touched on, just that massive amount of talent that we lost in terms of sales and just people leaving on freeze, but also through injury this season, having to deal with that. That was really tough to get through in terms of LJ and Sam. But yeah, as you say, I think I'm expecting a really busy summer as well,
Yep.
because it always is, but also because Sonia has had her first season at Chelsea. She knows the shape of the squad. She knows the areas where she'll want to strengthen. And I expect us to go for one or two really like prime signings this summer. It's a tough one because obviously we got the Euros at the same time, and I think a lot of our market will probably be playing in that competition. But yeah, I think I'm really excited to see how we look come the beginning of next season, because I absolutely trust Paul Green to get it right.
Yep, I would look at a a winger, and I'd look at a central midfielder if I were them right now. That's what I would be doing. I'm an 8 out of 10. I think the business was critical, if not perfect for the moment. I think like you said, there's 5-6 signings here who are for the future. They're not meant for today. They're meant to get some experience along the way and then become what they're going to become at 24, 25, 26, right? I don't think anyone's going to begrudge a 19-year-old goalkeeper coming in January, getting injured as, oh, we need that person now, right? So I think to get Naomi Girma was a dream. I just was thinking back to when I did that special when we first started hearing like little rumors along the way, like that could happen. I was like, I mean, she's one of my favorite players in world football. I cannot be more excited to that. But, I do think that there are some gaps in the team that they will need to address this summer. And those gaps are made apparent as we went through the Champions League, that we were caught out a little bit short in production up top. And that the midfield can get overrun. And so we're going to need to either tactic ourselves out of that or figure out how to add quality that's required. So I think 8 out of 10, and that's no slight at Paul Green. It's really hard to have a 10 out of 10 window here. I think this is a team that will continue to improve in the offseason. All right, Ollie, it's awards time, and let's just have some fun with these because I think we've done the heavy lifting on the season analysis. So let's give some superlatives out to a fair amount of our team who are more than deserving of every award that they got, even if the official award givers did not give awards to our players, despite dominance across the board. Looking at you, WSL. All right. How about player of the season? Who is your player of the season?
I think there are a lot of candidates here. I'm noting what you've put down, and I'll go for a shade of difference. I think across the squad, there have been plenty of times where individuals have stepped up across this season, and I think consistently there's probably only maybe 2 or 3 names across the entirety of the season who can take this accolade. But for me, I'd go for Sunday Baltimore. I think just you look at the way she ended the season, you look at the way she stepped up in massive moments. Like she's the one, Barcelona away, who can hold her head high. She's scoring that goal. She's the one,
Yep.
in the cup final that's like pulling us over the line in terms of goals and assists. Like she has been a revelation this season. I think she's been by far our best value for money. like you can't argue
Yes.
for what she's shown in terms of right wing, in terms of left wing, left back, right wing back at times. Like she's been everywhere, and in all those positions, she has achieved a base level of quality that I think, to be honest, has probably been like unmatched across the squad. And especially in moments where the likes of LJ haven't been able to play, like she has stepped up, and I think that's such a great reflection on her coming into a new team and under a new way of playing in terms of Sonia. I think she's really grown into it, and she's clearly a very well liked part of the squad as well. Like you
Yeah.
just saw the scenes at Wembley in the cup final. Everyone's running to her and is so happy for her. I think this is just the start of things as well. I think that 3-week period where we had a fit LJ and Sunday Baltimore kind of interchanging was such a dangerous kind of duo to watch, and I cannot wait to see how that grows in terms of that partnership. That
Oh
is
man.
just the baller like ability we saw down that left side, just back flicks and back heels and step overs for days just because they could, was just so lovely to watch. I can't wait to see the kind of player she becomes for Chelsea, because this is her first season and she's already 2 feet through the door.
Yeah. Imagine you barely get past LJ from a sauce perspective, and then you have more sauce coming right at you on the left hand side. That would be a hell of a lot of fun to imagine, for sure. Look, I'm going with the player who's on the shirt that I'm wearing right now, and that's Millie Bright, who, is no surprise to anyone who's listened to this podcast for a very long time, is my favorite player at the club, has been since I first laid eyes on her crunching tackles in the year of our Lord 2017. She is imperious. 18 major honors to her name, deserves a statue, all that stuff. But to play every game this season, I think even noting after the season on her own podcast with Rachel Daly that she's spent right now. She's not feeling the best that she's ever felt. And, I think needs to take a moment for herself to get mentally and physically healthy. It's courageous to do. She's going to help a lot of people by doing it who feel the need and the pressure to play in every single thing all the time. She is the definition of a leader to me, and I don't think this team is anywhere close to what they achieve without her playing at her best. And so, more to come from her. I expect her to lift the Champions League over the next season or two, and to really cement herself in the lore of women's football. She is the best. So that is enough about Millie Bright. She is, for anyone who's listened, always been my favorite player on the team. Young player of the season, Ollie, was a pretty straightforward bit of business on our side. I mean, we talked a little bit candidly before the show started, and Ollie's like, there's just some I can't disagree with you on, and this is one of them, because it is firmly Aggie Beaver Jones, Aggie, as the young player of the season. What a massive, massive talent we have on our hands here. In moments in which Chelsea were struggling to find goals from anywhere, and there was a huge kind of early season to late season drop, Aggie Beaver Jones stepped up in every position across the front line, as a number 10, as a left winger, as a right winger, as a lone striker up top, scores important goals to get us to where we need to be. What else can you say about this player other than now scoring hat tricks at Wembley just for casual fun?
Absolutely. Like, it's a reflection of how far she's come that she's one of the first names on the team sheet, right? It wasn't too long ago that we were thinking of Aggie as like a like a Lola Brown, right? Just stepping in
Totally.
as an
Yeah.
academy player and saying, "This is great." Seeing her off the bench, she looks kind of ready, but you can see she's not really there yet. Like this season, she's played every position up front. She's played 10. She's had to drop slightly deeper at times, and you know, Sonia also has a clear project path for her as well.
Yes.
Like she knows where she wants to build her. She knows where she wants to, take her on. She knows where her best position is. And that might be reflective in terms of, who we buy this summer as well. But she's our top scorer. An academy player is our top scorer. That's such a wonderful thing to think about. And, yes, she's been inefficient in moments, running through, but she's also a really young player and she's learning, but
Yeah.
she's also horrible to play against. Like absolutely horrible. She's so fast, she's tall, she's strong, she's intelligent
Constant
in her
effort.
movement. 100%.
Yeah.
And I think I can't think of any more, perfect scorer to end our unbeaten league season than Aggie with the winner against Liverpool. It just feels right, to score in front of thousands and thousands of fans at Stamford Bridge and get that acclaim, because she's earned it this season, and I think she's on an arc that is kind of special to watch, and I can't really wait for, I think this summer, for her to we'll come on to it again with her, but I think this summer she's going to do pretty well, and I think that's going to put her on a great platform for next season as well, just to kind of sail onto the next step for Aggie, which is very, very exciting to watch.
She should also come back up to the stage because she's won our most improved award season over season. So this is 2 back-to-back awards for this year. I mean, your call about her being the top scorer, scoring crucial goals. I mean, 2 late goals against Liverpool, won the FA Cup, one at the end of the season. Showed some clutch gene where, I think you only get there by doing it, to know you can do it again and again and again. Man, so excited for what she can become. She goes from being a maybe question mark in the season review to an integral starter for next year's team. No doubt about it. Fascinating to see how Sonia plays with her and the other forwards, assuming that everyone's healthy up top. If we move to something of a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2, or if we play her in behind, or if she takes over the right wing spot. I mean, there's a whole different bevy of possibilities with her, but it's her own performance that has put her in a place to be a starter at Chelsea Football Club long term. And I have to imagine somewhere Frank Kirby is smiling, thinking about like the next great English player to come into Chelsea's front line to take over for a lot of the goal scoring responsibilities. Obviously, Lauren's been there for a very long time now, but the next kind of generation of talent to come through, makes me smile. So Aggie, 2 awards right in a row because she deserves it. Mea culpa, Ollie, the player who potentially we weren't as high on or didn't have as much juice for at the beginning of the season, that now has gone through and really defied expectations and had a phenomenal year.
Yeah, for me, I go back to Sunday because when she
Yeah.
comes in as a free, I'm thinking she's a great talent. She's had a tough time in France at points, and not really being able to establish her best position. And then I see in preseason she's coming in at left back, and I'm like, oh, is this, what's the kind of thinking around this? And then through the season, she's scoring massive goals from left back, and showing all her ability. She's developing that kind of defensive ability as well, though kind of caught out at times. But yeah, I just think I can't think of a team next season that doesn't involve Sunday Baltimore at this point, and that's a massive reflection on what she's done this season and how integral a part she's been. And now she is one of my favorite players to watch at Chelsea. She has great skills. She does them as often as she can, which is wonderful to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And she was also a brilliant ball striker as well. Like wherever she shoots from, it has a massive chance of testing the keeper. And I think that's such a massive boon in the women's game as well, where the kind of ball striking isn't necessarily as like massive a part of it. I think where you have prime ball strikers like a LJ, like a Sunday Baltimore, it really
Girl,
stands
right.
out. Guru Wrighton,
Yeah.
it really stands out and gives you that ability to change a game. And we saw it at every single level of this season. She hits it from somewhere and it either goes in the top or bottom corner. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to stop. And couple that with her versatility in terms of being able to play right wing, left back. I think we've got a really special talent on our hands, and I can't wait to see how she's utilized maybe better next season.
Couldn't agree more with that. I have to give a mea culpa to Lucy Bronze. I didn't I don't think I understood the signing when we made it. I certainly didn't think that she was going to play every single minute of the season, which she damn near did. I certainly didn't see her playing at the level in which she played this season against a lot of physical competition, WSL, a lot of speed on the wings. Yes, there were times where she was caught out desperately, but she also contributed a hell of a lot from an offensive perspective. And I didn't necessarily see that coming either. So I just, combine that with the leadership that she showed at critical moments of the season as well, alongside Millie, alongside Aaron, was a massive part of this season and could have been up for player of the year as well. I think we have our preferences, but was certainly in that conversation along the way. Huge mea culpa to Lucy Bronze. I did not see it coming, and now I will not make that same mistake again. All right, Ollie, we continue on the superlatives here with comeback player of the year. And I think there are a lot of different ways to kind of interpret comeback player of the year because, it could be a player coming back from injury or a long-term absence of some sort. It could be a player who just simply reached a different level and continued on, overcame something. What is your comeback player of the year for 2024-2025?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? At the start of the season, I think it could have been JRK, and she was kind of leading our output, kind of exploded out the gate. But I think over the course of the season, I think you've got to go with Millie, just off the back of last season and how much she suffered. And even after the end of this season, you can see she's had to take a break again. But just the way she led from the back, getting back to levels that we've not seen in a couple of years from her. Just really tough to get past. Playing great switch passes, winning every header, throwing a body on the line, lifting trophies. I mean, this is, everything we associate with Millie Bright as captain. And yeah, she just kind of rolled it back, and she's in a space again now where she is truly amongst the elite of women's football, rightfully so, where she belongs. And yeah, I think if she can lift the UWCL next season, she will firmly cement herself on that kind of Mount Rushmore of England, English women's footballers. And that needs to happen sooner rather than later, because you cannot argue with the trophy output of Millie Bright. You cannot argue with the fact that she will be the first name on the team sheet in defence. She would have been if she didn't take a break for the Euros as well. No matter what opposition fans say, she is that true leader. She will get you where you need to be. And she does raise the tide for all boats, and demand a consistent level. And yeah, it was just so great to get her back to that level that we expect. But also, I think, as you said earlier, I think it's really important that she takes this kind of, mental health break this summer. And it would have been an agonizing decision for her, knowing going into the Euros as a very strong squad off the back of a lot of momentum this season. And she would have been a massive part of it. But it's much more important that she's in the right place mentally and physically going into next season, and not push herself through the red line if her bucket is overflowing with these kind of anxieties and stress. I think that's a lesson for a lot of us to take away.
Certainly could use that lesson myself at times. No doubt about that. I went with Cat Mac. This is a player talked about on the last episode on YouTube. 2.5 years, 22 months out with injury. I mean, this is it had to be agonizing for her. Just getting started, peak of her powers, winning the Champions League, getting hurt in that final. Now, 2.5 years later, starting to finally physically look back to the player that she was. I think you saw the energy and enthusiasm in the FA Cup final as a statement piece of what she could become, whether as a number 9, whether as a number 10 behind. A lot of different possibilities for her as she heads into next season. I think the confidence in which she spoke with at the end of the season interview that she did on the club's website was indicative of not only like her mentality, but how ready she is for next season. She's obviously playing for the women's national team again this summer, which is phenomenal for her. And I think Emma Hayes kind of understands her situation acutely, which is very, very helpful when both managers are there to support you in your rehab and to get you back to where you're supposed to be. They've been incredibly patient with her. They've taken the right steps to ensure that she didn't get re-injured along the way, which would have been devastating, I think, for that point of time. So super, super, super happy to see that she is looking like herself. She's playing with joy again. And I just cannot wait to see what she does next year. She's early player of the season contender for me next season. I'm that confident. So knock on wood, cross your fingers, do whatever you need to do. If Cat Mac is playing anywhere near her top level, we're going to be in a very, very good spot for next season. Best transfer business, Ollie Glanville. We talked a little bit about the transfers in the first segment of this one, but where do you land on the best transfer?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mix for me between most expensive, record breaker, and free for different reasons. I think, Sunday, as I've already touched on, is way up there for the player of the season for me, and all of her impact and all of her versatility, but also just going out there, making a statement, bringing in the Secretary of Defense, Naomi Goma. And I think just making sure that got over the line was a big statement. And I know, we didn't see enough of her this season, and you'll talk more about that. But I think just having her as part of the squad, finishing the season in the way she did, embedding herself, finding all her new sisters in terms of Neve Charles and people like that around the squad, and that impact on Cat Mac as well, that kind of friendly face to help her get back to her level as well. I think it's just so exciting to see, what she can be a part of alongside Millie Bright at the back. Like, that is an outrageous backline, and I want to see its full potential in all its glory. So yeah, it would be one of the two for me, Nick.
I'm just going to go with Sandy. I think that Naomi could be a future one of these. I think, unfortunately, like the injuries kind of derailed a little bit of that progress. But Sandy Baltimore, easy for me. I mean, I saw her in preseason with her bright orange Predators on, and I was like, I think I've said this before on the podcast. I don't think they just give those out to non-talented players. I think those are special deliveries for the sauce. If you have the sauce, you also can wear these bright orange Preds, and she is every bit deserving of the best transfer business. Arguably the most versatile player in the squad in terms of what she can deliver. I don't think we saw her playing left back on our bingo cards this year for majority of the season. Then she steps up at the end of the season to play left wing when we kind of had the full complement available. Stepped in for an injured Guro Wrighton at times this season as well. So Yeah, what a player. I do think that leads into the failure to launch business, the transfer who didn't quite necessarily get running. And I will just continue on my thread here with Naomi Girma. Obviously, I'm super thrilled that she's at the club. This is not a negative on her. This is just a came to the club injured situation after the end of a long season. You have to remember the NWSL plays a different calendar than the English calendar. So she had already played a full season, played the Olympics, had, a ton of matches under her belt by the time she got to Chelsea. And at the end of the last season, I picked up a huge calf injury, which had kind of like stalled her start. So she doesn't come in until like the Palace match in February, re-injures it pretty much right away, isn't seen again until later in April. And I think only ends up playing like 500-ish minutes across all competitions. I think what you take away from this is like when we did see her in the FA Cup final as a part of a backline three, which is an interesting scenario for next season. Whoa, like very, very encouraging signs, but did not really get off to the fastest start. So that might be harsh for people, but I think the weight of expectation after the biggest transfer in women's football history, is what it is. What is yours, Ollie?
Yeah, a similar line, really. I think the weight of expectation amongst English women's football fans kind of lay quite heavy on Lucy Bronze and Kira Walsh. Mm-hmm. And whilst Lucy came in, immediately, and she kind of hit the ground running with that, goal against Palace, and kind of sashayed her way in terms of like taking off that right back spot and assuming it even when Niamh was fit. I think Kira coming in mid-season, there was a lot placed on her in terms of, she is the pivot for England women. And there was an expectation that she would just be able to slot in and take our midfield up a level. Well, the reality is that you have a brilliant midfielder in there in Erin Cuthbert, and we also had someone in Shukanuskan who had shown last season that her versatility can really take you places that maybe you weren't expecting in terms of goal scoring and other things. And I think playing with Kira, you have to play to her strengths and you have to play through her, and you have to almost kind of organizationally work around her and with her to get the best out of her. And I think at times we simply couldn't do that. I think because of personnel rotation, because of just the amount of games, because she was coming in mid-season and hasn't had that pre-season to prep with all the players. She was having to kind of learn on the fly, and as gifted a footballer as she is, I think that is a struggle at a very top side when you're kind of looking in from the outside and you come in, you're kind of thrust into the very center of our team and expected to just perform at that level. I think she didn't struggle at all domestically because we are that much kind of superior to a lot of teams, but also because she'll have kind of more time on the ball with protection around her. There are less kind of maybe aggressive pressers, we'll say, and she can play those kind of longer passes. I think in Europe, especially against some of the top sides, I'm thinking like City and Barca especially, she did kind of struggle when she was really pressed and harassed in some of those games. And I think next season, I just want to see her playing with her back to our goal. I want to see less of her having to come short and lay it off. I want to see her ability on the ball, her longer passing, her ability to switch play, her ability to play through balls to the likes of Myra and Sam and LJ and all these people that we can utilize a lot better, or Aggie, and her breakthrough season. So yeah, it's more a reflection of, I think, the weight of expectation of Kira coming in mid-season, and I think some of it was, slightly unfair in terms of that expectation. She was coming in to get us over the line and in the Women's Champions League, but yeah, I think next season I just want to see her develop that kind of on the ball presence a bit more, basically, because we know she has it. She's done it for England for many years. She did it at Barcelona. She did it at Man City to a massive degree as well. So we know she has it. It's just about maybe getting in that preseason, working a bit more with like the likes of Erin, Shirka, Vika, whoever, after training, just working through some drills just making sure that you understand each other's movement a bit more, and then knitting that together becomes a really frightening prospect for the opposition, because then you have the likes of her through ball ability, her longer ball passing, and that's a real weapon that we should be utilizing a bit better.
The next one, again, some similarities in some of these answers that we have coming up, but the armband aura. So let's pretend that Millie Bright isn't started the season as captain for whatever reason, which is not going to happen. Who is the next up in terms of like who would take over as future captain? I don't think either one of us could see past Aaron Cuthbert as the next logical pick. They have started to share responsibilities in the same way that Millie and Magda used to in terms of, you know, directional capability and all that sort of stuff for the club. But Erin is just a preeminent leader. She leads by example. She leads through very loud words as well. She is not a wallflower, I will say. She's one to kind of raise the standards, to gin up her team. I just a special player who's won almost everything at age 26. Ollie, you forget that she came to Chelsea so young and has been with us for so long and is still like 26. And you're like, wow, incredible.
Yeah, no, she's got so much more to offer as well, and
Yes.
I think even now she's developing sides of her game around breaking into the box, and maybe we want to see that a bit more next season. If Kira is being that deep lying playmaker, maybe we can see a bit more Aaron Cuthbert bundles into the box, or screamers from outside. That would be lovely to see. But yeah, I think there's Chelsea with Aaron Cuthbert and there's Chelsea without Aaron Cuthbert, and that is a massive difference in terms of the squad out on the pitch, the squad mentality, and that kind of demonstrative ability on the ball and off the ball as well. So yeah, I think Aaron Cuthbert is Chelsea in many ways, in the way that Millie Bright is Chelsea in many ways. Just to shout out your point as well, I think if we're thinking further down the line, maybe someone like a Naomi Goma could maybe take on that responsibility, leading maybe without the armband or with the armband, who knows? But yeah, I think it's a great reflection of the squad now that we just have so many leaders as part of it, and
Correct.
Demonstrative vocal leaders is a huge thing, because especially when you're thinking of bouncing back from ties that you absolutely don't want to be part of, those sorts of characters are really fundamental to then going on and completing an unbeaten domestic treble, and I think that reflects very well on them.
She was also the player of the season at the club, so you can't look past that. Before we get into best win, there were only 3 losses to talk about for the year, so it's pick one of your 3 losses, Ollie, which is really staggering to say out loud. Again, within context here, what's your worst loss of the season?
Yeah, I think Barca, either Barca one is probably the simple one, so I'll let you take that. But I think City away was a really annoying one for me, because it was during that spring series where we knew that maybe one of them would go a bit wrong, and it was just the extent to which it went wrong. 2-0 felt like quite a tough one to get back from. Having said that, it did then lead to probably one of our best European performances and beating them 3-0 at home. But yeah, it did put me out somewhat, going back to City and falling 2-0 behind. But yeah, I think you can take the Barca stuff, Nick.
I think we got the first leg against Barcelona wrong, and then once you get that first leg wrong, it's nigh on impossible to do anything. And second leg, I think the second leg was a slightly worse performance overall, personally, because there was a moment there where we were only 2-1 down in the first leg, and there was still hope at that point, and then that hope got dramatically taken away. So I'm going to go that first leg Barca loss, because I think we just got it completely wrong, top to bottom, player performances, managerial setup, everything. But that's the learning moment now. You got to take that and significantly move on. I do think I'm just going to cascade into best win, taking from yours to mine. That 3-0 against City at home in the second leg of the quarterfinals against City was really, really, really special. It reminded me of what running Chelsea can do when their backs are up against the wall and in a very precarious situation. 2-0 down against a team that frankly we struggled to score goals against over the last couple of years seemed to be a high hill to climb, and it could have been six. It was so dominant in the way that we played at home. It started off right away. There was no doubt what we were going to do. We played with an intensity and a commitment that I think we had been longing to see for a couple months at that point. As the team went through a bit of a dip, and just blew them off the pitch. That was also the day as I was boarding a flight to come over to London the day after. So emotions were running high, but that is the preeminent victory in my mind of the season. What about you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was just a great place to be. I mean, it just felt like waves and waves of Chelsea dominance. And on a similar line, I think the cup final was just a lovely cherry on top to our unbeaten domestic treble. Just, there was any sort of nervousness was just destroyed after the first sort of 10-15 minutes. I think, we just established that we were by far the better team, and they just essentially didn't have an answer to anything we had for them. It was 1-0, but it was a very dominant 1-0. It wasn't like, there was any question about who was going to go on and win that. And then, yeah, when Catmac's header goes in, just the lovely scenes, the bench emptying that is rapidly becoming quite a habit at our club in general. That's very nice to see. I hope that continues longer term. Just seeing all the celebrations for the second, and then for Sundays for the third. I think it's just a lovely way to end the season. Indoctrinate a few of the newbies on how we do celebrate trophies at this club. It's useful to have 3 trophy raisings to help that. But yeah, I love the idea of just showing the traditions. And yeah, also like the idea that Naomi Gurma was asked if she knew about Country Roads, and she was like, that's a remix, right? Um, so there were some great moments there, and yeah, it is a perfect way to cap an unbeaten domestic treble, and long may that continue.
Agreed. Let's start with just a little bit of need to see more for next season. I think there are a lot of candidates in this. If Chelsea want to ascend to the peak of the mountain, right? This is not saying that any of these players were horrifically bad or anything like that. So don't take it out of context. But if Chelsea are going to get where they need to go next season, these players have to be at the top. Candidates could include, but are not limited to, Myra, Neve Charles, Kira Walsh, JRK, on and on and on. What's your thought on a player you want to see more out of next year, given that context?
Yeah, I kind of approached it from a slightly different angle here. So I'm thinking of what we needed in terms of, we knew Sam and LJ would be out kind of longer term this season, and in that context, there was a lot of rotation. Some of it enforced, some of it not enforced. Um, so I found it quite hard to isolate one particular person. But given that Aggie had this kind of breakthrough season, I don't think she can be part of this discussion at all. So it came down to me between Myra, in terms of her goal scoring taking a dip after a brilliant end last season. And I think, to be honest, it did feel like she was carrying an injury for a lot of this season, but just simply couldn't sit out because we didn't have any other
Yeah.
options up front. And yeah, Sonia said as much a few times. But also, yeah, JRK, I think it's also a reflection on how well she started the season, that the end of the season felt like such a step back. And I don't know many of the reasons for that. It felt like, she was so kind of dominant and confident earlier in the season. It just kind of fell off slightly. And that's tough for her, but also I think it's reflective of how much pressure there is to step up when the likes of Sam Kerr and Lauren James aren't there, and you can't rely on their massive presence to just help you get over the line. You have to take some of that on yourself. I think a lot of them struggled, to be honest. I think all of our forward line did, um, at times, with that kind of goal scoring burden, and it's likely to happen, especially with maybe not having the record of scoring many goals throughout a season.
Right.
So yeah, I think tough one, but I'd go with a lot of the forward line, but yeah, maybe JRK here, Nick.
Yeah, I think if Chelsea are to do the business next year in the Champions League, the midfield has to play better. And when I look at the midfield and I look at Kira Walsh as the like high profile transfer, I look at Aaron Cuthbert, I look at Shukanuskin, I look at Vika Kaptein, I look at Orange Francois potentially, those sorts of players. We were overrun completely by Barcelona in midfield. It wasn't even there was no competition to be had there, right? So I look at that as like a key area, and I think Kira Walsh needs to be A plus to overcome what could be a numbers disadvantage or just simply a tactical kind of nuanced approach against a good Barcelona midfield. I mean, they do have the best midfielder in the world. Can't say enough good things about the way they play. It's really, really tough to compete against them, but we have to give ourselves a chance, and I think that has to come through Kira having a massive step up year over year, or half season over year, for the way that it's going to look. So I look to her as a leader. I look to her as a super talented player. I look to her as a line splitting passer to make all the necessary adjustments in the way the team's set up. I don't know if we're going to play a back three or a back four next year. I don't know if we're going to play with wing backs or not. I don't know how the front configuration is going to look. I think that's super exciting. I'm not worried about the front line at all. If everyone's healthy, I think it's going to be a pretty incredible selection of players to go and get. The midfield is the one where I'm looking around and I'm looking at your cities. I'm looking at Barcelona. I'm looking at those types of teams. Are we 10 out of 10 in that area to really dominate and play the style of football that I think Sonia Bonpastor wants to play?
Yeah, fair.
We have different thoughts on Master of the Dark Arts, and I'm excited to dive into the differences here. You went with a lovely goalkeeping option. I went with a forward option. Ollie, would you like to tell us why Hannah Hampton is your Master of the Dark Arts this season?
She is our master of the dark arts, and she loves it. Or mistress of the dark arts, I suppose. She the way she like dives on the ball to waste time demonstrably, and then
It's such a slow fall too.
It's a great slow fall. It's the patented Hilario flop, is what it is.
Yep.
And the way then she will turn towards the nearest set of away fans and outline clearly what her intent is, given that said flop. I think she definitely loves that. I think she just relishes that kind of competitive edge. I think we've actually missed a huge shithouser that would have done us very well this season in Sam Kerr. I think she's undoubtedly the main shithouser of the squad and absolutely relishes anything to do with that. But given that she was, in the stands, I'm not sure she can take this accolade necessarily. But what about you, Nick?
Hannah's great. I think the AKB Legacy Shithouser Award is in good hands for sure. I think that in years past, Lauren has been on the edge of this particular award. I saw her this year getting smarter about the way that she deployed her shithousery. And that's very exciting because she gets kicked all the time. She gets fouled all the time. She gets pulled back all the time. The referees in the WSL have trouble seeing it all the time. And I think she started to understand that she could give it back, but subtly. If she gives it back subtly and isn't the wrecking ball that she can be at times, that she can get away with a lot of it. And there were just little moments where I was like, okay, I see it more. I see how she's starting to. It's not the big kick out. It's the little shove out of bounds when someone's, you know, crowding her out. It's the I'm going to take the ball down to the corner flag and I'm going to keep it there and I'm going to have myself a giggle while I'm doing it. And then I'm going to get fouled. And then when I get fouled, I'm going to fall down dramatically because, oh my God, it's that little stuff that I think for her game, if she's able to keep it controlled and in a good way, it will only lengthen her career, first of all. And two, will only win Chelsea fouls in dangerous areas and have us all giggling and smiling about the way that she did it. So I look to her as, I agree with Sam Kerr. Coming back will be a massive um, shithouse contender for next year, Master of the Dark Arts, whatever we're going to call it. But yeah, Lauren is on the rise in this area for me.
Yeah, and just your point, like I think this might be part of Lucy Bronze's legacy at this football club. We know they're pretty close in terms of her and LJ, and I think just her getting a bit more experience of that side of the game, because Lucy Bronze is a very canny operator in that side of the game. It helps when you've played for Lyon and Barca and know what it takes to get things done. But yeah, just giving LJ a few pointers in that aspect. Don't lash out when people are trying to rile you. Don't come in elbow first when you feel like you really need to, and they probably deserve it. Just sit back a bit, because the reason why they're kicking you is because you're so much better than them, and that's the only way they can deal with you. So if you think of it from that aspect, you can utilize it and make a bit more sense of it, I think.
As the famous phrase goes, real G's move in silence like lasagna. So let's carry that forward for next year. Last two of the season, of the awards, the superlatives. What is your shithouse moment of the season, Ollie Glanville?
You cannot look past Erin Cuthbert getting Katie McCabe sent off for the second yellow at Stamford Bridge. Not only because, I was sat next to the Arsenal fans for the entire game, who were apoplectic with rage that the penalty was given in the first place, but for Katie McCabe to then to then be booked, turn round and just scream expletives at the face of the referee, which probably would have been a yellow card anyway. But the fact that Erin then runs to the referee to make sure she understands in her moment of shock that Katie McCabe is the said deliverer of expletives, was wonderful to watch. And it kind of added to the lovely staging of it. I thought it was a nice little screenplay there. Should get an Oscar. But yeah, it was wonderful to watch, followed by the slow trudge off of McCabe to the sideline. And yeah, I can see that happening on and on and on, given their lovely sort of almost sibling rivalry they have. It's like competing shithouses, and it's interesting to watch.
There was nothing better for me than Mark Skinner going out in the press prior to the FA Cup saying, "Hey, this is our trophy. Chelsea should remember that this is our trophy." As if we hadn't won it the 8 previous times or whatever. I just don't. It's the absolute delusion of this man is crazy. Like he wins one thing and apparently they're king of the world. So the fact that after the second goal, Cat launches the extra ball on the sideline into the crowd and the celebrations along the sideline, and Skinner's just sat there, arms crossed in his little chair, just getting absolutely embarrassed by Chelsea Football Club yet again. It was just so lovely. And I think all the celebrations were great. I don't understand how someone who is so consistently third or fourth has the confidence to think that they're the top of the hill. I've never understood that. But he apparently did until we decided to win 3-0, and it could have been more. Mark, you know this. So I thought that was great. It was a nice end cap to the season, and he looked like a fool again.
Long may it
Not for
continue.
the first time. All right, we're going to wrap this one. I know it's been a long special, but it's fun, frankly. Goal of the season. There's a lot to choose from, obviously, this year. What is your goal of the season, Ollie Glanville?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think there are a lot of candidates to choose from, and I think you've taken one that I would probably go with as well, just from a sheer sort of quality angle. But I think the ingenuity and the instinct of the finish for Myra at the Emirates and everything that it meant at the time, and that lovely celebration with Sonia, exactly the kind of almost like overhead kick, but standing, I guess is how I
Yeah.
describe it. With that kind of lovely shot of Sonia celebrating with the ball going in the background of the Arsenal net. I think everything that meant, it was a pretty huge goal at the time, and it kind of established how he would be for the rest of the season. And yeah, I really liked. It's very aesthetically pleasing, is how I describe it. Just when everyone in the box is just watching the ball sail into into the underside of the bar. No one can do anything about it, and yeah, we go 1-0 up. Followed by, of course, her and Shirka's patented celebrations. This one being probably one of their best, with Myra's arms crossed and Shirka between her legs. It's a brilliant celebration. So yeah, that's the one I go with, Nick.
To wrap this one up, Micah Hamano, 30-yard thunderbolt against FC Twente in the Champions League. Micah had a phenomenal early part of the season. I think tailed off a little bit late, frankly, but super young player, Japan international. And we saw her quality and what she can do from a pressing perspective. But we also can't forget she's a goal scorer. This is what she does for fun, and a 30-yard thunderbolt is not what I had on my bingo card. But I just remember watching that, going, "Oh my god, what an incredible hit! What a just insane thing to try from the angle that she was at and everything." That's one of those moments that sticks with you to go, "This is a big time player." We haven't seen exactly where she's going to potentially fit quite yet. And I think situationally, Sonia will deploy her appropriately. But man, she had a couple of huge performances in the first half of the season, and the 30-yarder was just the icing on the cake. So, Ollie, thank you for participating in what was a incredibly good end of season wrap up for the Chelsea women. We will, of course, be back over the summer as things develop from a transfer perspective, and of course, the Euros going on this summer, and so much more. But really appreciate it, and of course, Chelsea fans in the comments on Twitter, hit up Ollie, give him all of his praise for a wonderful season wrap, and we will see you next time. Until then, keep the blue flag flying high.